And that's News at 10. Good night.
Hello there. Well, the weekend's nearly with us once again. If you're thinking about planning activities, well, Saturday looks like the best day because most of the country were dry and bright, some good sunny spells, and maybe a few showers rattling around over Scotland and northeastern England. But then on Sunday, well, this next weather system comes in, bringing a fairly cloudy day for many places, with some rain at times. Now, tonight we've got rain working its way down from Scotland and over Northern Ireland, bringing some milder air as it does so many places are going to see temperatures rising throughout the night. In the far south, there are some clearer breaks, lying some mist or perhaps fog patches throughout the night. Tomorrow morning, we start with the cloud and rain over Scotland and Northern Ireland. England and Wales are going to basically start dry but rather cloudy. And then as we go into the afternoon, well, that rain's going to work its way down into central parts and eventually to the south by the end of the day. It could be fairly drizzly in many places, but at the same time, clearer skies come into northern parts of Scotland, bringing with them some showers, one or two of which may be wintry in the far north there. So temperatures tomorrow, well, we're going to feel the milder air working its way down across the country, followed by fresher air once again into the far north, with some fairly stiff winds at times up in those northwestern districts. That's it from me. Whatever you're doing, do have a very good night and look out for the rain edging south slowly tonight.
Calls for action on bedsit safety after 2 die in fire. Life sentence for killer of Hove mother Marion Rilke. And is any of this yours? Good evening. A Kent MP has joined the call for new safety measures after 2 men were killed by a blaze that swept through a block of bedsitter flats in Thanet. It's the latest in a series of tragic fires in beds and in bedsitters and flats in the southeast. David Forsdyke reports.
The blaze swept through this disused hotel with such ferocity that fire officers reported that the inside glass doors had melted. It began on the ground floor of the building, which was once a hotel, and then bedsits, used mostly for single people on social security. A fortnight ago, it was repossessed. The 2 men who died were living here without permission or electricity.
There was no power connected last night, and we believe it to have been disconnected about a week ago.
What is your understanding about how the place had been lit by the residents?
There is some evidence that residents had used candles for lighting.
This is the sort of blaze the fire brigade warns can happen in blocks of bedsits. But in the private housing domain, the authorities have little power to enforce fire safety regulations.
With regard to houses in multiple occupation, there is far less strict control. And in fact, the fire authority, the fire brigade, has no direct involvement with the enforcement of that legislation. So to that extent, we have very little power to, in actual fact, ensure safety standards in these places.
It's understood the men who died in the fire are both middle-aged. They're thought to be Robert Ed Wicker, who was known locally as Bobsy, and Thomas Young, who was known to friends as Fergie. Buildings with multiple occupation like this former hotel are all over the southeast. In Thanet alone, there are 1,500 blocks of bedsits. A fire in this one gave those who died little chance of any escape.
At the moment, it's too easy for any small hotel or guest house, with or without adequate facilities, to change to hostel use. I have no particular objection to a good hotel changing to a good hostel, provided that they have the facilities and the fire precautions.
A man who forced his way into a woman's home and cut her throat as she tried to ring for help is tonight behind bars. Jailing 20-year-old Gary Gregory for life, the judge praised brilliant police work for catching him. Alan Clark reports.
Gary Gregory, an unemployed man from Hove, forced his way into the home of 51-year-old Marion Rilke and slit her throat. She was found when an anxious friend called to find out why she'd failed to pick up her 9-year-old daughter from West Hove Junior School. Mrs. Rilke was found lying in a pool of blood. Her phone was off the hook. An electronic print showed how Mrs. Rilke had desperately tried to dial 999, but had only managed to dial the first 2 nines. Police caught up with Gregory when they learned he'd been knocking on doors, trying to talk his way into other houses and asking directions to a road in Hove. a house-to-house team went to that area with an artist's impression. People who matched the picture, including Gregory, were blood tested. Traces of blood found at the scene matched Gregory's DNA profile. The court was told the chances of it belonging to someone else were 1 in 1,400 million. After the trial, Mrs. Rilke's relatives welcomed the verdict. They said they had nothing but contempt for Gregory. There was praise for the police investigation. The judge said the community's in debt to the officers. And prosecutor Robert Seabrook QC said it was exceptionally astute detective work. It was a thorough, efficient and imaginative inquiry. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, Gregory was led into a police van to spend Christmas and a life sentence in prison.
A fisherman has told how he helped to drag 2 pilots to safety after their Cessna plane had crashed into the sea. The 2 were spotted clinging to the wing of the aeroplane by the crew of the fishing boat, the Valiant. The plane sank off Hastings only a few moments after the 2 men were pulled out of the sea by 26-year-old David Curtis and his friend John Martin. Both are off-duty lifeboatmen.
We were being out fishing and we were coming home, and all of a sudden this aeroplane drew up alongside us at sea level, flew in front of us and ditched into the sea. And by the time we got there, the 2 fellas in the plane had got out and were hanging onto the wing, and the plane was sinking. And the plane sunk. We got alongside and we pulled them out.
More than 300 jobs have been saved after a management buyout at a Kent paper mill. Empire Paper at Greenhithe was owned by a Norwegian group, but closure looked imminent when the company started to lose money. Sussex Police have taken out a massive insurance premium to stage a display of antiques. The valuables are worth £250,000, as Natalie Gray reports.
The antiques fill 2 warehouses and are the results of 2 police raids in Brighton and mid-Sussex. 2 men and a woman have been charged with theft following one of the raids. A man is helping with inquiries following the other. Police aren't sure if the items have been stolen, but they're urging anyone who's been burgled to see if they recognise any of the valuables on show to contact them immediately.
We're particularly interested in these 2 items, which are made of ivory. As you see, they're heavily carved. One is some form of tankard with a lid, and the other is a small shrine. One of the other items that we have is this silver salver with, as you can see, the writing on the back, Reuben Fletcher Esquire, died 27th of April 1824 on his 70th year.
Police say their job would be made easier if people marked their valuables. Meanwhile, all the items here will be put on public display in the Territorial Army Barracks in Dyke Road, Brighton, from 10 until 4 on Saturday and Sunday. Detectives have taken out insurance of £350,000 to cover the massive haul.
And that's it from the TVS newsroom for tonight. We'll be back with more news for the South East at 9:55 in the morning. Good night.
Good evening. Well, the region of high pressure, which has been hanging around today, is actually going to drift slowly southwards towards France ahead of a frontal system that will be bringing rain to the north and into the Midlands during tomorrow afternoon. As far as tonight is concerned in our part of the world, temperatures are likely to drop down close to freezing in 1 or 2 places, which raises the risk of frost, and there could also be some fog patches developing. Tomorrow, the winds will tend to become a little more westerly as the day wears on. Another cloudy day, fairly quiet day. Best temperatures about 7 Celsius, probably on the eastern side of the region. The general outlook is for that rain to reach us late tomorrow night. Good night. Here's the summary.
The nightmare's over.
Looks like she's alive.
Or is it?
My mommy always said there were no monsters, but there are.
History.
I am not going back, and I mean it.
Has a habit.
Those are dark, and they mostly come at night.
Of repeating itself.
I said no!
Your wildest dreams.
I'm not going to leave you, Newt.
Can and do come true. Aliens coming soon on TVS. Next tonight, the concluding part of A Night on the Town.